should be working. That should be happening. Is anyone here? Hello everyone. How's it going? It's roasting where I am. Hello, hello, hello. Yeah, welcome. I've got City Skylines running. We're here. We're in Python Valley. We've got, what's this? It's a train. Yeah. How's everyone doing? This is going to be, I don't know how long this is going to be. I'm knackered. It's been a dreadful week. Dr. David Turner is here. Hello. Welcome. So last time we were here, we built this tiny little spur railway line designed to feed an agricultural area, which is precisely what it's doing. And what did I call it? We called it the Harris Rail Sidings. Yeah, I think we can do better. Let's call this. It's going to be Harrington. Yeah, and we're going to call this area Harrington because why not? Yeah, so this area is going to be called Harrington. There we are. I'm very quiet, am I? Let me just check the balance. Am I very quiet? Oh, let's just pause that for a second. How's it? The trouble is that any better? Let me know if that's better. Is that any better? How's the sound? Any improvement at all? Yeah, let me know whether that's worked. We'll call that Harrington. What's the balance like between the stream and me? Let me know. I'm going to drink tea while I'm here. Oh, I don't know why I'm drinking hot tea in such a hot day, but more importantly, I have fluid nourishment in the form of water down here, so that should help. So what we're doing today, the plan today is to build as many railway lines as we possibly can in the time that we've got until Dina finishes doing exercise and I run away from the feed and drink Prosecco. Evening, Simon. So we're back in the Python Valley, and what we're going to do, so we're going to build lots of railway lines. So I think the first one we're going to do is, every railway line you build in City Skylines, you've got to think a bit about what it's doing, what the history is, and actually I think that's fine. Check what the history is, and so we've got all sorts of different places that railway lines got built to in here. The whole point of this was that it had a bit of a hodgepodge of all sorts. So we could do a passenger line. Okay, so who wants to? So put your votes in for whether you want a passenger line or a freight line, and partly we might start using. So we might have some junctions to connect. I'm not going to have multiple bridges over here yet, so we might well turn this from currently it's a single track railway bridge. We might well convert it into a double track railway bridge if it starts getting used for passenger lines. So what I'm thinking basically, so this is the town. This is sort of our main central sort of city. Oh, you can hear my fan. My poor fan is going like the clappers. People want a passenger railway. Okay, that's cool. So this is, what is this place? This is Inverpython, and it's getting bigger. You can see that there's a nice little kind of abbey here. Got the abbey. People are wanting passenger line. Okay, cool. There's going to be a passenger line. And so at the moment, this has one single line serving it, but as you can see, it's not doing much good. It just connects over here to Pilning. Here's Pilning, which is sort of a modest little town built around a mixture of industry and tourism. By the looks of it, kind of fairly organically, this thing's turned into a bit of a tourist place to get up into the hill up here, which I think is called. Is it called It's Mount Python. There we are. Get the gag. Funny stuff. Anyway, so we're not going to build a high-speed line in City Skylines yet because that's going to be a proper episode. So if I'm doing that, I'll have to record it separately. But what I can do here is build some bits of railway line. So where should we connect up to? So we've got Inverpython there. That's a fairly major town. We've got the other fairly major town here is Port Moke there. So can build up Portmoak, so we could quite easily build a little railway that connects Portmoak up to Inverpython. That's a possibility. That feels like that's a probable one. We've got Great Essington down here. They are with some green area that will probably get occupied by a proper City Skylines park at some point. But at the moment, it's kind of what have we got? What's going on down here? Let's have a look, shall we? It's a derelict pub. That's about what you can expect. Yeah, various things going on here. And then we've got quite another large town down here, which is Matherton on Irk, because this is the River Irk, obviously. I mean, why not? Yeah, the River Irk. See. So we've got a few different options. We've got there's going to be a proper high-speed episode. The reason I'm going to do a proper high-speed rail episode is because once we've built loads of railway lines and expanded the cities a bit more, so there's more stuff in the way, I think it'll be quite interesting to go through the history of a project. So if you're up on your network rail sort of nomenclature, go through the grip stages, except go through the stages of the development of a proper railway project, a high-speed project, including things like dodging woodland, dodging villages, deciding on what the route is, kind of go through this process, and then actually go through what the construction looks a bit like. Because within City Skylines, okay, we can't, when you build a railway, it's pretty quick. But I think we can, by using a bit of our imagination and some maybe a bit of modding here and there, or certainly using the tracks, you can show what a railway looks like, the process of building a railway looks like. So I'm going to try and do that for that one, but that's in the future. And I don't know when that'll be, because I have to say my energy's been pretty flat on doing YouTube stuff recently, because I've been quite busy with work, but also struggling to focus on work. We've all been trapped indoors for too long. Anyway, I'm whizzing around and not doing very much. So what are the votes for what our first railway line is going to be? So we've got Matherton, we've got Portmoak down here, and we've got Inverpython. And then we've got a few smaller sort of settlements up here, sort of smaller lines. I'm inclined to think we're going to go from Inverpython down to Portmoak. You're welcome, Toby. Very welcome for that thread. Hopefully it answered your questions. I'm thinking, unless anyone's got any better ideas, I'm very much thinking... Simon's pointing out whether early railway lines followed rivers. They did in some instances, yeah, not always, but generally that's where you want to follow contour lines, and rivers create their own sort of flat contour lines. If we are going to do so, while you decide where you're going to put vote in the comments while you decide where that's going to be. I'm going to check my phone because it just vibrated to make sure it's nothing serious, which it isn't. Good. It's my brother telling me about Szechuan stir fry. Thanks, Bryn. And we can have a look at contour lines to see how we're going to get up to what our railway is going to look like. So, okay. So unlike this one, this freight line basically stayed at the same elevation the whole way, like the whole right the way. It's downhill all the way from where the ore kind of gets processed over the other side here. It's all the way downhill. To the steelworks down here. I think in this instance, however, we're going to have a pretty flat railway. It's going to be pretty much at grade the whole way, I think. Single track branch line at some point, yeah. The passenger lines, you can't do them as single track because you can't draw, unless you do it as a loop, because you can't draw an out and back line, so you won't be able to draw. City Skylines kind of prevents us doing that. So we're going to have a two-track branch, or a two-track railway, but I think we're going to draw our first main line, and I think it's going to be between Inverpython and Portmoak. That's what I think. No one else is complaining, so that's what I think we're going to do. And in terms of route planning, are there any special considerations you need to make when planning a railway next to a river? Absolutely, there are. Yes. So, for instance, you need to understand what the flood level is of the river. So if you're next to a river, the chances are, particularly when you're further downstream, so when you're kind of closer to the sea, that river will naturally flood. Now that means two things. Firstly, you need to make sure that your actual railway is above the level of the water, number one. But number two, you have to make sure that when you've built your infrastructure, either it's strong enough to be a dam if the river floods through bridges and things and then gets stuck on the other side, or you have enough gaps that water doesn't flood behind. So on the kind of the other side of the earthwork from the river, or from the body of water, so that when you do have these areas of flooding, they can flood. You have these sort of relief sort of gaps within an earthwork, so the water floods kind of back through those. So yeah, you have to understand, and there are other things as well, because you have to understand the geotechnical capability of the land next to the river. So if there's a great change over the year, depending on the flooding cycle of the river, in where the groundwater is and kind of what the pore water pressure is within the soil, then you need to understand that as part of building your railway, so that your railway doesn't just sink into the mud when the when the groundwater is high. Yeah, so the traffic along here is rubbish, as you can see, and so I think this is the prime chance for us to build a railway. The question is, where are we going to put the terminus? As you can see here, are we going to put the railway? Are we going to build a station? We're going to start with a modest station, so I'm not going to go full whack and build a colossal terminus to start with. But are we going to put it on the outskirts and then potentially consider expanding extending the railway into the city? Because that's something we could do to start with. We could have a temporary terminus. It often happens. In fact, in York here, the terminus was built as a temporary sort of wooden structure just outside of the city walls before Hudson had managed to negotiate to smash through the city walls to get into the centre of the city. What else? What's the chat? So that's Tom. Thanks for the question, Tom. That was a good one. There is a two-way single track line on the workshop somewhere. Yes, you have to mod for that to work, and my computer is struggling at the moment with not very many mods running on it at all. So I'm going to resist that at this point. I also brought cake, but the thing is, you can't eat cake on a stream. There's cake. See the cake. You can't eat that on a live stream, so it's going to sit there. And I might not even eat any of it. I might have some later. If we have prosecco, I might have some fruit cake with my prosecco. That's prosecco is cheap and delicious, So don't complain. Fishing route is on polluted water. Oh, never mind. This is sort of a bit like the early Victorian period in my sort of timeline. So everything's polluted. Everyone's going to eat polluted fish. Worse things have happened. Right, I've digressed somewhat. Where are we going to put the station? Are we going to barrel our way through, or are we going to locate it on the outskirts for now? Vote in the chat. Are we going to barrel through, or are we going to put it on the outskirts? I'm going to start with a station that's in the outskirts. Yes. I agree. So what we're going to do is, first of all, we're going to check that we've got the land to a level that I want it. We're struggling on soil availability, so we don't want to be creating a huge, long earthwork for this one. However, I think I do want to build it at slightly above ground level, which might be a challenge, but we can come to that because we might well create some borrow pits. So borrow pits are where you actually excavate a large area to gain some earth. So that's the level that I want the railway to be built at. Now, where's the station going to go? So I think I'm going to build the station. Around about. I'll build it here. So just building up a little level so that you can see it's kind of a bit of elevation above the river level, but not a huge amount. So a little bit there. I think that's about where we're going to build our station. So there's some space for expansion here. The town might well expand to meet it. What I think we will do is, so you can see there's a connection here. There we go. So Cedar Street, I think, is what we're now going to connect up to. So if I just do this and then just expand this up there, so there's a nice level, and Oh, look, we don't want any snaps on. Let's get rid of all the snaps. Let's just build it exactly as we want it to be for now, and then we can do some snaps later. I think that's where we're at. Lovely. What's Michael C saying? Build a station and name it a place that's 2 miles away. Well, indeed. Does happen, doesn't it? Perfect. And I'm just going to stretch that up here. How are we doing? That's not bad, is it? A little bit of a connection. Marvellous. Let's just plumb that in. Good stuff. And we're going to build our railway station, actually. Let's build that first. We're going to build it like this. There we go. There's our railway station. Let's switch it off for now because obviously we don't need it yet. So now the question is where are we going to stick this? So let's do some route planning. And as you know, as any of you watch this will know, I'm going to get my dirt track out, and this is the way in which I develop my railways. So the first thing we're going to do is have a nice shallow curve. So I tell you what, we're going to do the straights first. So that's our station. So you can see it's quite a distance from the centre of the town. But I still, you know, if it's well connected up enough, it's not necessarily something that's going to dissuade people. So if we build this fairly close to the road, keeps out of the way of prime development ground. Let's do that. How does that set us up here? Is it too? No, that's okay. So if I do that, yeah, perfect. So there's our straight and a curve. There we are. That's not bad, is it? It's fairly. That's our alignment's going to be. We're going to get to challenge mode soon because we're going to find our way onto the might need a bus link or trams. Yeah, that's true. This place has, in terms of public transport, I think it has very little. It's got just so we've at the moment just got buses connecting towns. We haven't got any kind of inner town connections. So perhaps you're right. Perhaps there will be the need to fund a local tram service to connect the railway station here with the rest of the town. So some of the features that we've got down here, like there's a fish market, for example. There's a fish market. And another thing that you might consider, that we might end up getting considered, is that we've built this railway. Is there a way that it can transport, for example, fish? So there's a lot of fishing down here, fishing. So it might be useful for us to transport some of that fish. So we might build, you know, for example, having a single branch line that comes in, bulldozes all this and connects up. Might be a thing we do. So, but for now, I'm going to stop getting distracted. So let's see. So to cross this, there's a toll here, which is clearly not ideal. The way to cross this, So if I just get my elevation map up. Now we don't necessarily, is it possible that we could go in on the other side of the highway? Because thinking about where we end up further up here, do we need to, because getting past this, obviously the railways didn't have to worry about getting past motorway junctions because they didn't exist. But, you know, whatever, we've got obstacles to deal with independent of how we're going to manage them. I think we might. So we don't want it to be too long a route, because a long route is obviously not that useful. But if we were going to build a station, for example, if we were to build a station down here and then ramp up to meet the freight line, is that something that we could do as our station location? Fish trains would be good. Yeah, I agree. Might need a bus link. I think it's a bit of it's an interesting one, isn't it? Because so we've got, if the railway if it cut in round and kind of continued, cut round and went and the road had to climb up over it. And then we went round. We might find ourselves climbing up the contours. Could have the railway following the motorway, yeah. But I kind of want to build it in a way that doesn't necessarily. There's an element, so you can see here that this is the motorway that was basically built already when I got the map, because I've used one of the default ones, and it's true, motorways are often parallel to railways, and we might well do that with the high-speed line. But I think for our smaller lines, I want to make it look a little bit like they kind of came first, if you see what I mean. So we're playing a bit with time here, because the motorways were here first, for whatever reason. If you want a slightly more chronological building of a city, then I am coming up with a new series, which will be live streamed, and it'll be an hour or so every evening, possibly Thursdays rather than Fridays, called Building Bradshaw. And we'll start from scratch with an empty map, with a potentially familiar looking river running through it, and we'll be building the city of Bradshaw, and we'll have roads going across and little towns building up, and then there's kind of a very obvious sort of walled old city that we'll build out from, and then the railways will arrive, and we'll be a bit more chronological. This map is really a bit of a model railway as a tool to kind of teach permanent way and railway concepts. So but for now, in this video, I think we're gonna bulldoze round. I think that's exactly what we're gonna do, and we're gonna start climbing. But do we want an intermediate station down here? That's the question, because we're adjacent to Fessy Bridge. Do we want a station that's here that we then cut up? Because that could be quite interesting, couldn't it? I think we do, you know. So I'm going to do it. We're going to build this up. God, we've run out of soil already. Look at that. So, what do you do when you've run out of soil? Well, you build a borrow pit. So, where are we going to do that? What are we going to do? How are we going to do that? I mean, the other thing you can do is... Where are we? Yes, that's exactly what we're going to do. We're going to build a borrow pit. We're going to cut away some of the land over here. So we're going to level it with the road here, I think. I'm just going to take a little bit of soil. Yeah, that's all right, Matt. Don't worry. We're just doing a bit of soil stealing at the moment, which is quite a common thing to do when you build railways. Usually you do it in a field, so you take a whole field and you just lower the level. And indeed we did it for motorways when the Blackburn bypass was built. Why did railway companies build station platforms on curves in undeveloped areas when they could have built on straights? Good question, because there wasn't really any pressure for them to not build them on a curve. And actually people quite enjoyed, you know, that curvature was sometimes considered an architectural aesthetic. There are other. Cheers, Michael. See you. There are other. There are lots of other reasons as well, but that's one of them. Is that there was no particular pressure, no need to build them on straights. We didn't have the need at the time. So we've got a bit of soil, which is good because it means I can continue to lay this station, which is here. Now, do I actually want to build this up, or are we going to build this on the flat? Because this is starting to get quite steep, isn't it? I am going to... Yeah, I'm doing it. It's gone. I was thinking that it'd be good to have it on the back, but I think it's too much. So let's just flatten that out. Let's flatten that out, flatten that out, flatten that out. Which means that I will... is that lower there? I think it is, isn't it? Yeah, it is. Yeah, lovely. Anyway. So we'll use a bit of a gradient to come down here. I think we're going to build a station. how many junctions have we got that roundabout? Yeah, okay. I'm building a new line, Matt, yeah. And I think I'm going to do this and this. That's too steep. It's too steep. I think it would help actually build the railway along a bit so I can see where I'm going. There we go. Yeah, that's just... So what I'm doing here is trying to build a... I mean, not talking on a live feed is what I'm doing. What I'm trying to do is build the railway in such a position that the station is... Maybe the station should go here, actually. Maybe that's exactly what should happen. Some distance from Fest. We were talking about stations being built stupid distances from the actual place they're named after. Well, this might be just the chance for that. Right, let's pause this because we're going to get rid of these. There we go. Let's just... Come on. Come on, Snap. Oh, come on. There we go. Purpose of the new line is, so this is, I think that's at the level we want. Just check that it's not on anything bumpy. No, perfect. This new railway line is a new passenger railway connecting up the two largest towns we've got on the map, Portmoak and Inverpython. So what we're going to have here is, I'm going to extend this for starters. Just upgrade that and Everyone always asks me about the dirt track. It's because I don't have an alignment software. So it allows me to pick where the railway is going to go without actually laying the track. The tracks are much more expensive, so it means I can play with the dirt tracks quite easily without laying a load of track. And I find it a little bit easier to see as well. So it's basically me doing alignment design, except that there is no alignment design software within City Skylines. So that's why I use the dirt track first. And then basically the other reason I use it is because then I know that I've not, so when it's dirt track, it's because I haven't built the earthwork up to the level I want it underneath. Let's see. I'm glad everyone's atting so that I can see the chat. That's good. We're going to demolish this bit of road here for this station. Because we are. And we're going to... in fact, we're going to demolish this too. And we're going to build this. There's a bit of highway along here. But actually, we're going to make it a bit of a straight road here, and then come on now. Get rid of the guidelines. There we go. Lovely. Straightened it. Love City Skylines. That's better. Right. That's what we want. Nice little bit there for the station. Lovely. I do play it with unlimited money, Brian, because I don't believe in neoliberalism, and capitalism is a duff system, and money, as we've seen during this crisis, is made up. It's rubbish. It's nonsense. Or at least the idea of a limited budget for a state investment is nonsense. So yeah, I do play it. As you can see down here, there's a little infinity sign. I play it with infinite cash. But I just like using dirt track because it kind of feels a little bit like there's some construction process for the railway, and it's a bit, as you can see, it's a bit easier to see. You can see the dirt track more easily than you see the railway there. Anyway, right, that was that. Just so I don't forget, I'm gonna extend me road back so that it links up. There we go, and yeah, there we go. That's the bypass there. Lovely. Let's turn this station off. We'll come up with station names afterwards. That's the last thing we'll do. And we're going to just upgrade this to there. We go. Because this will become its own little town. As often happens with stations, they end up creating their own little... We're going to call this... Well, what are we going to call this? We'll do that afterwards. If we actually succeed in building a railway. So that's okay. So that's our station. Right now we need to work out what's happening here. So let's go back to our dirt track again. This is where we're going to curve off. Now, are we going to level crossing it? That's the question. No, we're not. We're going to actually demolish these two, and we're going to build this here like this. There we go. And then nice little go. Lovely. Total silence is good, isn't it? Have I tried... anyone who's like got mild socialist tendencies always gets asked to play workers and resources. I have not played it. At some point I might, and it might be quite fun too. But again, I have to pay for these things, and I don't have an unlimited supply of cash. This is my issue. Lovely, lovely, lovely. Before I forget, I need to reinstate these power lines. I'll do that after I build the railway, actually. Lovely. And I might well go like this, actually. Yeah, let's do that for now. And then we can do that. A railway station. Or train station. Both are correct. Right. What's Matt? Matt, what are you saying? Thanks. You don't understand why people would do that, though. What? Build the... oh, can you build a railway without Oli? Oh, I see what you mean. Yeah, got you. Sorry. Yeah. So that's happening along there. We've got our railway alignment sort of broadly coming in here. Now we've got to think about where we're going. Where are we going? So I'm thinking I'm going to connect in with the junction. Oh, it'd be good not to. It'd be good not to get conflict down here. It'd be good to meet up kind of more this side, wouldn't it? Maybe get a station around Woodhead. Yeah. In fact, that's I think precisely what we'll do. So where's our station around Woodhead going to be, and then we'll come and connect with it. First things first. Again, we're going to bulldoze and connect it up a different way. Let's connect it up. working. Oh, I'm dreadful at these feeds. I should speak more. I'm supposed to speak the whole time, aren't I? That's the whole point of these live stream feeds. Dreadful at this. Right. I'd like a station at Woodhead. Now this calls into question the elevation question again, doesn't it? Because what is the elevation around here? Is it the same as we've been building to the whole time? IRL is in real life. Woodhead Parkway, yeah. No, we're going to build Woodhead Station right in the middle of the town. It's going to be, well, Woodhead's not very big, so its station is going to end up being quite central. I think, and by quite central I mean I think I might end up with it coming in a bit like this, but perhaps a bit less. Got to think about what the junction is going to be along here as well, you see. So, so if the junction is going to come off at a 45-degree angle, which is what it will, so the junction is going to come off like that. Yes, it is. Which means that we're going to need to come round. Well, the station is going to be a distance from Woodhead because that's how we're rolling. I think we're going to come. I think we're going to have a bit of a long straight, actually. I think that's what's going to happen here. And the station will be built against that. We're going to have to cross. So how are we doing? We've got railway alignment that's going to come in. It's going to cut around the base of this bit, and the motorway is going to have to dodge. Brian Munro's asking if I saw the cab ride video that the GWR did from Temple Meads to Paddington. No, I haven't actually, but it's one I need to watch. I think they did it. Have they done that with it? I presume that's recent with all the wires up. It should look quite impressive actually, like a proper modern railway. So our station is going to go about here, perhaps about here, because then it'll be connected up to this road. Yes, that's exactly it. And but I am going to just do. I just want to curve it away because we've got these rocks to dodge as well. Yeah, there we are. I think if I've done that right, it should now. Yeah, perfect. So get the road out of the way. That's why I pause. We're going to just run in a straight line this way. Straighten it up here. Let's leave that curve for now. Let's see what's going on over here with our straight. Now, do I want this to curve? To be honest, this can probably keep going straight for a little bit longer, actually. Yeah, and then we might want to start kinking it around a bit, just to avoid too much in the way of earthworks. Let's do that and start curving around. I'm glad we've got. Yeah, it's nice. We've got 7 people watching, which is nice. Hello to all of you. I think you're all just chatting, which is nice. I'm tired. It's been a long day. It's been a long week. I think at this point. Yeah. Curve round. Yeah, curve round and then we'll have a straight here. Bye-bye. Straight. Yeah, wait. I think, if I'm not mistaken, that lines up nicely with that. There we go, so that's our railway alignment. Doesn't look too bad, does it? So it cuts through, so we've got some bridges to build. Yeah, bridges, earthworks. No, they don't go to Temple Meads yet, you're right. The wires on the Great Western Main Line, that is. It's ridiculous that they don't. It will happen, but just not yet. Dig that one up because I think we'll need that for. Gonna need that. Earthwork over there for the road. The motorway bridges are going to. What are we going to do with the motorway? Where's it round? That won't be a problem. That will not be a problem. We just need to work out what the vertical alignment needs to be now. So we've got the horizontal alignment of this stretch. So our first leg, and as often happens with railways, they don't, you know, we're tying into an existing bit of infrastructure here, which involves gradients and all sorts. So let's build the station here first so we know where we're supposed to be. What should be done to the Stockport Stalybridge line? A lot. The Transpennine route upgrade is going to be doing a lot of work along that line. This is all flat as a pancake, isn't it? So if I select, let's go with this and just flatten to make sure we've got a nice flat area for our station here that might well be slightly elevated above the rest. And put the station in. I need to stop being silent, don't I? Ha! So there needs to be some. So that's what we want basically. Good. Switch that off. So Woodhead Station. So that's now means we've got what have we got? We've got Portmoak. We've got this station, which is going to be Feshybridge Station. We've got Woodhead. Now, the question is, this is level, are we going to build a new station up on here to serve Tersham? I think we are, you know. I think we are. And because I'm trying to introduce problems for us to then have to successively solve, what we're going to do is okay, we've got choices here. We could pummel the new railway underneath the existing single track line. Build a station on the low level here and then have it join in, or we can build a station above here, so on the kind of the high level, and then you end up having to build a road to get up to the station level. I think that's what we're going to do, which means we need to decide where that station is going to be. From my perspective, I think I'm going to put it here. So let's build that out. This is where our station is going to be. There we go. Yeah, just build that out there. Yeah. Build our station in here. There we go. That is where I want it to be. But for now, I'm going to connect it with a single track here. And I'm going to just for the sake of argument, just extend this so the earthwork doesn't look quite as weird. There we go. And then we need to build our station, a ramp to get up from here to here. There we go. Let's see how that looks, shall we? To there, and then there's that. That's not bad, is it? Way up to the railway station. Not uncommon for railway stations to be built in a position like that. Right. What's the chat? Where's the Woodhead Tunnel? You could then build a monorail round the town to feed the new station. No monorails. Monorails are getting their own. They're appearing later, but for all the wrong reasons. I've just looked down here. We've got a pretty steep grade to get from here to here, but it is earthworks time, so we're going to start creating more of these earthworks. So single width, maximum strength. I want to get up to here from here. So I'm going to just trace up here. This is going to be a pretty steep railway gradient as far as things go, but such is the world of city skylines. Let's see how that looks. Not crazy. Obviously that's frighteningly steep compared to the real railway, but that is how things go, to be honest. So there's, here we are, we've built our first bit of railway line, which now means that we can, it's probably worth us upgrading these to be double track. There we go. There we go. So we've got double track. It's nice, isn't it? Opens up to double track, and we've got, you can see it automatically builds a scissors crossover at the station there. There we go, lovely. I'm trying to build railways that look broadly realistic, though. I don't want to. Using soil to build earthworks is part of the real railway challenge. That's the tricky bit. Right, so we've got that built up. Now let's, while we're here, let's just upgrade. This is going to be that. Can make this nice and neat and tidy. Bit of road there. Obviously this is station road here. Yeah, nice. Let's just call it station road. Now, we've got to get up and over here, which can be tricky at such, so you see there's a very sharp skew angle here. Now, is this going to be possible to do using roads? Let's have a think. Well, firstly, we need to make sure we've got the railway at the right level. So, yeah, this is the tricky bit because it's climbing quite a lot to go through the, to make its way through here. There's quite a lot of climbing, which we could just cutting our way through. But that might not be the, so I'm going to, okay, right. I'm going to pick this level here. There we go, that level. And I'm going to start from here. And I'm going to just draw this to be this level along here. And I'm going to take the railway station level and I'm going to take it under the bridge, so that's the same level. And then from the there to here, we're going to do a, go from here. So we've got enough soil, right? Oh, we don't. We just don't. So let's pick this and continue. Because I think if we... Because we're going to need... It depends how much we climb. I think we're going to cutting through here because we need the soil. Let's go. We're cutting through here. Yeah. There we go. Another nice cutting. And same again. And then we need to work out what that earthwork looks like on the other side. So where we need to have a ramp to drop down the other side. There we go. Now we can try this again. So we're going to go from here, and let's actually do it this way around. That should be it. That should be it. So now we just need our road to do the same thing. So what is... I'm struggling to think. So tell you what, Give me 30 seconds, I'm just going to open a window because it's not as windy outside, which means I might be able to open a window so I can breathe, and so that my computer can breathe. Back in a sec. Professional as ever. Matt Reed's asking if I'd use an incline on City Skylines. By an incline, do you mean a vertical grade? Because lots of railways have inclines. So we just created an incline here. This is an incline. You can see there's quite a steep. I mean, from a City Skylines perspective, that's quite flat. But in a real railway world, that's a very, very steep climb, steeper than ever you'd see on a mainline railway. If you go onto the vertical, yeah, probably a good thing to look at is if you go onto the vertical alignment episode of the Permanent Way, of this series, you'll see I talk a lot about what vertical grades actually look like. Martin said I'd go underneath. Now, the trouble with the latency on this is I've moved on and done something completely different, so I've completely forgotten what Martin was referencing. Sorry, Martin. It was probably a very sensible suggestion. I'm going to start marking out my starts and ends of straights now so that I can start removing my dirt track and start building my railway. Come on, there we go. Same again here. I mean, that isn't quite. No, never mind. Lovely. And then another one here. These are what allow me to know that I've been drawing my bits of alignment in the right place when I delete them having done the vertical alignment. So there's a curve and there's a straight. I'll just make sure I've done that there. And that's a nice long straight, lovely. With it's quite a sharp curve at the end, isn't it? I'll leave it there. We can flatten out in the future if we need to. And let's just lovely. Right, Michael. The answer is you've missed nothing. You know how slow this television is, right? Right, looks like a very, I mean, it's a slight bit of earthwork, isn't it? Yeah, you can just about see the earthwork, there's not very much. Let's build the railway. And I think we've done that whole straight, haven't we, actually? Sorry if this is loud, everyone. Just get rid of that. Lovely, lovely. Let's draw the straight first. There we go, that looks extensive. And join that. Oh gosh, don't do that. Keep it tangential. Join that up. That's done. So we've got a bit of railway. That's nice. That's that side done. So getting this, we can get rid of that bit too. Getting this vertical alignment right is going to be trickier. Let's have a think. Thinking isn't good YouTube though. I've learned this, right? So we've got quite a tight curve here, which I think we don't want that. We don't want that level of tight curve. We're going to get rid of that. Get rid of that. And we're going to put in a new curve that connects from there to there. And it's going to just go. And we're going to draw in a new curve that goes from here. That should be nice and even, which it is. That's far better. I didn't want to. That was far too sharp a curve for the alignment. So when I'm doing, so you can see that's quite steep, but I can cope with that because it's just off a station. Yeah, I'm happier with that. Now all we need to do is bridge this, which might be easier said than done. How are we going to do that? Because it's... I prefer bridges with earthworks approaches rather than just relying on the city skylines ramp, but in this instance we might have to do just that. We might have to do something like this, which is where I'm going to build my road. It's going to be one level up, and it's going to go over like that. And then we're going to just do this, that, and this, like that. Yeah. Why did I pause the traffic? Because I'm building the railway. And I generally just take the habit of pausing it because it avoids me worrying about all the fact that I've disconnected all the power lines and stuff and created hell. Let's just do that. Marvellous. Connected that up. I'm going to continue to it. Lovely. So we've got some railway this far. What are we going to do this side? I think I might do a very long single vertical grade. First things first, let's use this flat grade and just go this way a bit up to here. And I'm going to delete that. Yeah, perfect. I want to go from here. To do that from here. It's a long single vertical grade that's going to connect through with cutting and come out here just at the level I want, in theory. Let's see how it works in practice. So, going to go in here, draw me straight track. There, there's one straight, and another straight is... This is the one that wasn't quite long on, isn't it? We'll see how that works. Let's see now. Why not use the same regional style road for the bridge? Because it's quite a heavy traffic road, so I can't. It needs to be, otherwise it'll be a traffic bottleneck. I'm reinstating it with the same type of... There we go. So that's all that drawn, which is nice. That, and get that, and get rid of that, and get rid of that. So far so good. Oh, bit too much foliage along here though. Clear off foliage. Sorry about the audio. Toby Farman asks what my day job is. My day job is I'm a permanent way design engineer, senior permanent way design engineer. Yeah. So I do this, but for the real world, which is why I claim to know stuff about it. Is because it's my day job. There we are. That's crossing that. That's going to then do that as well. I might need to, right. So I can also do that as well. Okay, we've got our alignment through here, which is quite nice. I think the vertical alignment looks okay there. Yeah, that looks fine. Bit of a cutting. Comes through and does what it needs to do there. Lovely. Kind of crosses through. The road passes through. Yeah, that's a good point. Let's do the earthworks on this side too while we're at it. I'm gonna... Actually, I'd recommend there's a live stream I did for excuse me, I'm losing my voice already. Let's see, what's this? There's a live stream I did on for the what's it called? By the way, unless you haven't noticed, your brain goes into a special funny place when you're doing a live stream, because I'm thinking about what I need to say, and then I'm thinking about the facts that I need to slot into what I'm trying to say, and I'm thinking about the direction I need to go, and I'm playing City Skylines. It makes for great content. I'm not very good at this, but you're all watching, you know, so yeah. This is an excuse for me to play City Skylines, and I thought I could bring you along with me, basically. What was I on about? Human Rail Library. Tracy Barber and Lucy Pryor's event. Tracy kicked off and Lucy supported her for the second one. We went virtual because of lockdown, and I did a live stream video where I explain what my day job is. So I'd recommend going and having a look at that, because I explain in hopefully some reasonable detail the sorts of things I get up to. But I also did a takeover the National Railway Museum's Twitter feed, and there are some threads in there. If you search my handle and the Railway Museum handle, you'll see the day when I took over their feed, and I kind of explained some of the things I do as well. And there's some nice videos in there explaining what I get up to. Right, so we're back on earthworks mode, and we're going to just do a ramp from whatever this is here, and we're going to go from the middle of. We're just going to go from underneath here. We're going to follow this up. So it's a nice shallow grade that picks up to where the railway is. There we go. And then we just want to take this and go the whole way along to where I drew that from, which is back here. Get rid of that. And that. And then get rid of all these. And then draw the railway. Let's draw our railway. Just to check. See the earthwork there. You can see the earthwork sort of. I'm not sure about that bit though. Interesting. We'll yeah, that's not. I've stacked that, haven't I? It's easily done. Let's go for a single grade from here to here. Yeah, I'll do. These railways are not supposed to be perfect. They're supposed to look vaguely railway-ish. There we are. That's that. And this is going to be this. There we go. It's a pretty flat, boring bit of railway, really, isn't it? Let's flick this across here and do this. Happy days. So, we've got a railway connecting up through our rather poxy little outskirts station for this large place. We'll see how many trains start running and how busy they get. That station there, and we're running through with our railway here, and we're getting onto the last section here. What I'm going to do is I'm going to just do this. So that's what I want to be. This is where I am now. I'm just going to draw a single grade again so that I can get out where I need to be. Then delete all this, redraw the railway, and start building bridges over the top. Because I think that's what we need to do, isn't it? Short building bridges over the top. So you then, where is it? You there. This bit went to here, and then that was a bit of that, and then this was a bit of this. I think, yeah. There we go. Oh, we've connected right through. Hooray! Our railway is connected. Now we've got to fix some of the problems we've created elsewhere. You. Yeah, that's what to do. This is slow television, or indeed slow radio, depending on how you look at it. Excellent. Right. So once again, because I'm probably about to build it up with a load of earthworks. So this is where I need to get. You see the railway. The railway is kind of building up nice. I quite like that. I do like it when there's a little bit of elevation, just a bit more realistic. I think what Michael's saying is, Matt, that he just plays it on YouTube in the background while he's doing other things, or just has it on YouTube on his phone. Let's see. Simon, I hope your dad's doing okay. Let's see, where are we at? Let's build this. Yeah, even a bit more. Yeah, good. So let's take a height around about there. I mean, to be fair, I'm saying so little, it's more visual than anything else, but... And then I'm going to build this up the same on the other side. Because then what I'm going to do is build the road that connects the two from up here. I'm going to need to just, this is where I have to be clever. This is where City Skylines, particularly when you're building it in vanilla, becomes a bit of an art. Let's get rid of all of the guides. I don't need any of the guides, thanks. Other than angle, let's keep angle on because I want that to be like that. And at this point we will guidelines. That's our connection, and we're going to then just go straight. I think I'm going to just go straight from here. Perfect. I think perfect. Yeah, but not guidelines or length or indeed grid, just angle. What a ripe old mess that is. Do I want to tidy that up, or do I actually not? I don't care too much. However, for the sake of tidiness, I'm going to do that. There we go. That's a bit better. I think we just have to repeat the same thing on the other side. Get here and then do this. Oh, that's awful. I didn't want that. I wanted this. There, nice bit of curvature. There we go. That's the stuff. There, nice railway bridge there. Good. Oh, the highway bridge. Nice. That sounds nice, Simon. So we've got that's all happening. Very good. There's the station. The last structure we have to deal with is getting this highway up. So again, what I'm going to do here, I'm going to go do something slightly different, which is fatten up my brush and build up. Yeah, so obviously it's not going to be quite that high. I'm going to get a height of this height and then build it up like this. Not enough soil. Ooh, not enough soil. In which case, let's take this and do this as well. There we go, bit of soil back. Good. Also do this. There we go. Now, I think this highway is straight on one side, so which means I can build this straight. Yeah. In the 1800s, when the UK built loads of canals, why didn't they build railways instead? A lot of people had a lot of stake in the canals, so a major part of it. God, it just doesn't look quite right, does it? It's a bit too. It's not steep enough. A major part of that is railways are unproven technology, so people didn't know. People weren't sure about whether the railways were the thing, whether the railways were going to be the way that everyone would transport the goods around. So it took time for the railways to build the confidence in investors, because it was all built with kind of private money, actually, the rail network in the UK, which is why it's such a mess, to be honest. The rail network in the UK makes very little sense, and a good part of that is because it was built by private enterprise with very little, if any, strategic vision. So I'm going to go over here like this. Now that I've evened that up a bit, let's just have a think. Actually, if I flatten this here, this is dreadful. I don't know why any of you are watching this, but I'm glad you are, because it's kind of quite nice to have your company. I think at this point I'm going to do it. I'm going to curve round and build up to here. This is where I'm going to build from. I'm just going to do the highways, bridges get fiddly. Let's get rid of guidelines. Let's just freestyle it. Let's freestyle it. It's not bad. Quite happy with that. Let's stick the guides back on, and there we go. That's all right. Actually, I'll take that. I will take that. GP Vershner asks what my view of broad gauge is. Would the world have been a better place if Brunel had won the gauge war? No, it wouldn't. The broad gauge isn't actually a very good idea. The economies of, as you can see by all of the other railways across Europe and the US and other parts of the world, standard gauge is pretty good, and you can carry a huge amount of stuff on it. A confusion people often have is that loading gauge and track gauge are completely connected. There is a connection, but actually with standard gauge you can make your loading gauge pretty huge, because standard gauge is pretty stable. Someone who I'm going to get on a future Rail Natter, Professor Felix Schmidt. He's a professor, I'm sure he is, he must be, he ought to be. Felix Schmidt, who's brilliant. I think possibly one of the things we'll chat about in that Rail Natter will be the gauge question. And actually I think he did some work, or there is some published work, looking at what an ideal gauge might be, taking into account dynamics and loading gauge and all these things. And actually the Irish gauge, so around about 1600 millimeters, probably would have been optimum. Broad gauge is quite a bit more than that. Standard gauge is 1.435 meters, 1435 millimeters, and so that's considered to be not a bad starting point. Oh, we've run out of soil again. Oh golly, motorways, right? Motorways, just the state of them. I'm going to delete a couple of bits of road. So, interesting question. and I didn't really fully answer it, did I? But broad gauge, if you look at the economy of Bristol, Bristol's economy was held back by Brunel's broad gauge because the railways were probably the first system of systems, and there was no realization of the early railway pioneers that that people would want to run trains between different railway systems. They thought they'd all stay in their own little railways. And as we know, the railway, as we know now, the railway's a network. It's one of its major benefits is that you can run trains across this whole network. It doesn't matter who's built it. It's all to a standard, which means that you can run on and off other people's railways. And in Europe, particularly, that is clearly a good thing. Spain really needs to fix its gauge problem. Get rid of its silly Spanish gauge and use the same standard gauge as everywhere else does. Spend that money. Bristol's economy, as a result of this different gauge, because you'd have to go, so you went up to Birmingham and you had to change, or you changed gauge in Gloucester, you had to take all your goods out and transfer them out of a broad gauge train into a standard gauge train to go off into the rest of the country. So actually it was a real problem. And Bristol's economy only really started booming dramatically was when standard gauge was instated, when they put mixed gauge in the later part of the 18... When would that be, in the 1860s that they put the mixed gauge in? Someone else will correct me on that. So that, and then obviously they got rid of broad gauge after that. No, broad gauge was just a stupid Brunelian idea. When I talk about Brunel being a bit of a Musk, that's one of the key examples. He did not have the vision. He did not have the vision that people perhaps think he did. In fact, a lot of the things he came up with were rubbish. I want that to do this, I think. Oh no, I don't. I want it to do that. Yeah, that'll do. A bit of straight. Why not? That needs to be a bit like that, I think. And then I'm going to flip this over. Any other questions? These are always better when I have a bit of Q&A, because then I can sort of say things that are more interesting than me just waffling on, sat here. There we go. There's our bridge. There's our motorway bridge. It looks broadly motorway bridge-ish, doesn't it? We've got a bit of space under there for. I mean, it's pretty tight gauge clearance. I'll be honest, but c'est la vie. What's my opinion of Rail Baltica, a European rail project to create a standard gauge electrified double track railway for freight and passengers through Lithuania, Latvia and Estonia? It's happening at the moment, isn't it? And it's a good thing, yeah. More connectivity between people is a good thing. More connectivity, our ability to move stuff around by rail, which is by far the most energy efficient way of moving goods across land. That's a good thing. More of that. Let's move more stuff, people, things by rail. It's not just because I'm a rail engineer and it's my day job and my living, but because it is honestly, energy efficiency means that you're protecting resources. Protecting resources is good because we don't have many of them and we have a finite number on the planet, and also energy efficiency is good because we reduce the amount of energy stuff we have to burn to create the energy in the short term, and in the longer term means that it's quicker to increase the share of sustainable energy generation. Now, I'm in a bit of an electricity generation conundrum. How am I going to do this one? Shall I do something like... Let's get yeah. Perfect. That will connect over there, and that will connect over there, and we've got our roads. Let's see, what is the highway? Have I named this highway? I don't think I have, so we don't have to worry about renaming that. So what's left? We've got station there, we've got the road connecting, we've got the bit here, we've got this little, right, we're going to call, let's get this named. Yep, lovely. Freshie Bridge Station. Now, actually, are we going to call it? Yeah, we are. This is going to be Portmoak Station. But what was this street called? It's Cedar Street. We're going to call this Portmoak Cedar Street Station. Yeah. Let's switch it on. Yeah. And we're going to switch this one on. And we're going to switch this one on. And this is Woodhead Station. Lovely. Toby's mum has just brought him strawberries, cream, and maple syrup. Oh, lucky you. Lucky you. You know what? Stuff it. This is such bad TV that I'm going to cut myself a slice of cake to have with this cup of tea. Because why not? Why not, you know, treat yourself. Good crikey, it's quite a dense fruit loaf, this. Oof. Some of Aldi's finest. Yeah. Ashley Elgin asks, do you think the Russia and the CIS states should re-gauge to standard? Yes, I do. I think everywhere should. I mean, the Russian network is sufficiently large. Toby's delete this message. I wasn't moaning. You're lucky that you're having strawberries and cream. I'm jealous. Or is the Russian gauge a sufficiently large network that it doesn't really matter? Yeah, it's a very good question. I mean, it is a huge network, so it probably doesn't matter. It doesn't need to be a substantial priority. What you want to do is pick out the key kind of interconnector routes and then have them in dual gauge. That would be a good idea. Pop some butter on it. Yeah, it's quite dry. Me eating must be absolutely awful. I'm so sorry. This is some of the worst stuff that people will have watched on a screen. This is tertium. Tertium station, there we are. Sat dramatically above everything else. Pop some. Yeah, the lack of butter is a mistake. I'll freely admit that. Yeah, see, Twitter is on fire. Oh gosh, let's not worry about that. Do you know how close pylons are allowed to come to OLE? Yes, actually, because that was a thing that I spent a lot of time doing when I first started on the railway. In fact, I ended up getting to know the national grid and Western power distribution infrastructure better than the railways themselves. When you've got very high voltage, I mean, there's a range, but the air gap you need between 25 kV, which is quite low voltage in terms of the transmission and distribution networks, 25 kV OLE, overhead line, overhead contact system. If you've got a very high voltage national grid sort of transmission network, set of cables going over the top, set of wires, lines going over the top, but perhaps 275 or 440, is it 440 or 400, 440 kilovolts, which is a lot of juice. You need an air gap, I think, of like 9 meters or 15 meters. It depends partly. You've got to consider sag calculations. Every single span has a drawing for the national grid system. So for power lines. Now those cables, they expand when they get hot and when they are fully loaded because they've heated up a bit. So in summer, when everyone's got their aircon on or watching the telly, that's when they're sagging their most. So that's when they're getting closest to the railway. So, and you still need that functional air gap so that you don't get any risk of any sort of power jumping between the two. They're two systems you very much want them to be apart from each other. People are saying that this station looks a bit high. Once we've built up the ground around it, once we've got some trees on there, it'll look fine. Lewis is going to have to vote for the standard gauge rail network if he wants to know why standard gauge over the broader gauge the Russians use. Well, this is it, Lewis. Got to get involved. I mean, Lewis, you're already a Patreon supporter. You could. In fact, is everyone on here a Patreon supporter? More or less. You're all brilliant, anyway. Yes, I see. In fact, Brian, they did a really bad job of managing that. I can say this now because they're finished. They did a really bad job of managing it on Great Western, whereas on the Midland Main Line, with a substantially smaller team, we were a lot more on top of it. And it's myself and... actually, I wonder where she is. Fran Johnson. She's a brilliant project manager within Network Rail. Hopefully she's doing brilliant. Hopefully she's being made use of because she's a really, really good project manager. Fran was in charge of that aspect of Midland Main Line electrification, and she was on top of it. In fact, the Midland Main Line electrification team was tiny. so small and like totally underpowered. It should have been about 5 times the size it was. It's no wonder it was going really slowly at the start. But Fran was in charge of loads of stuff that she was kind of ticking over, and one of them was this. And actually, I did most of my early time on the railway was not inspecting railway stuff. It was supporting these Western Power Distribution third-party surveyors who would come out and they'd get their disto and they'd measure a distance from the rail running edge. So I always said, can you please do it on the running edge, so we got consistency from the rail. That's all right if you're not a patient support. There's no pressure to do it. Although if you want to, you can vote. Getting a disto, putting it on the rail edge, and then getting a distance above to their lines so that we could validate some of their calculations. It's a bit of a learning curve. For me, it was basically the first thing I did. And in some instances, I think one on the Midland Main Line, they're considering putting up a doll's house. It's almost a sort of a structure, a permanent structure, a box structure, which means that you can actually reduce, if you've got an air gap, the distance has to be quite substantial. If you reduce that gap, you need to do well, you can reduce that gap if you have something like a concrete raft over the top of the railway. So actually you might find that there's a raft structure splitting the rail, it just gets built for no purpose other than to allow you to have the wires passing overhead more easily, or close to the railway. Anyway, let's whiz over here. What were we up to? Tersham Station. Now, shall we just see if we can divert the bus route? There's a bus route, a few bus routes going through here. Now let's just divert the bus up here. Yeah, lovely. I'm happy with that. That's what I want. Bus doing that. And do we want another one? Do we want one of the other bus routes to? Why is it? Oh, that's right, because it's going. No, that doesn't make any sense. Oh God, no, it did make sense. Oh, why did I do that? What's quite nice is that all the buses seem to be doing. There they're out. I made a mistake there. I'm going to have to fix that at some point, because that was a bus route that did need to do that. Definitely did want to come in there. And I think I've just meant that the buses aren't diverting. There we go. I think. Oh, which one is it going to be? Oh golly. I'm going to have to just entirely get rid of that one. But I think I'm at peace with that, because now there's a railway connection. That might be fine. So it comes up through into Woodhead. Let's just... You know, you've got to have your transport connectivity. The reason I'm doing this is because we're about to get it running. Yeah, Brian Monroe says he's seen those doll's house things in Switzerland. Toby Farman asks why I don't like guided busways. It's because there should be trams. Ashley Elgin asks what my favourite gadget ban is. Oh, the Wuppertal suspended railway has got to be one of them, because it's pretty brilliant. What else have we got? What other ones? So I'm going to start a railway line. We're going to have a railway that's going to run from Portmoak to Fessy Bridge to Woodhead to Tersham to Woodhead to Fessy Bridge to Portmoak. There we are. This is our first passenger railway line, actually. No, it's not the Fessy Bridge, is it? We're going to Tersham. Portmoak to Tersham. I'm going to have what railway, what train set am I going to have? There, that'll do. And lovely. I think we're there. You know. Let's get rid of these. Anyone spot anything I've forgotten? Anything at all? GP Vershner asks, as monorails were mentioned, when standard rails are elevated, they always have a wide bridge structure holding them, but monorails only have columns holding the track. I think there's a second part of this question. Let's see, has that worked? We've unpaused. We're on the move. Are things broken? Are they working? If GP Versioner doesn't have a second part of the question, I'll say that's because... Oh, here we are. What's our train looking like? It's quite nice, isn't it? Let's follow this one along. Thus giving them their only advantage over normal rail, reduced light blocking. Light blocking. Could standard rail not have steel pillars that only support the track and nothing else to the sides? No, because you need to have structural members, and generally the structural members are girders that are set either side of the track. Oh, it does come in nice and slow. I like that. That was good. Here we go. So this is our train just going back and forth. Look at this. The rail looks pretty good. Yeah, I'm happy with that. It's nice, isn't it? It's doing its thing. One of the next episodes is going to be about boundaries, which is not the most glamorous thing, so I'm not going to do that on a stream. But all these railways are going to start fencing them up. Right, there it goes, underneath, boom. A rock structure that we've kept surviving under this bridge. And slowing down into the station. Look at this. Oh, I'll tell you what I've not done. I've not plumbed in quite a few of these stations. Look at this. Let's pause that and let me just plumb in some stations. Forgive me. Yeah, that's fine. Yeah, we need to plumb this one in. There we go, plumbed in. Have you seen that scene in the Polar Express? I've never watched the Polar Express, so the answer's no. My animated railway imagery that really sticks with me is the animated film Anastasia. It's one of the early DreamWorks animated films, and it was also the first ever VHS we got as a family when Mum bought a VHS player. And absolutely, I'll be putting gates in for maintenance. And there's a scene in that where a train gets all melted and broken up by some like shifty magic stuff, and I am all over that like a rash. Love that. Where were we? We were looking at this train, weren't we? Which is about to pull out again. So let's get back in there. Let's watch it go on its merry way. Look at it. Oh, it's about to go. We've got one passenger. Look at that. What time is it? 20:33. This has not been going for an hour and a half. What? Good grief. Is it been going for an hour and a half? It has, isn't it? Oh, crikey. Well, you have to stick with it for what we're going to do on the other side. Because I think I might have to draw a line. Or shall we have a look at where we're going to put the new station on the other side? Shall we have a look? Let's do it. Bourgeois propaganda. Yes, it is bourgeois. Yeah, like basically, it was awful. It's like Americans like getting money against the commies. It's really bad. Like it's really bad. But it does have a train in it, you know. Also, they wreck up the train, which is such an American thing. Wrecking up trains is such an American film trope. Like, leave trains alone. Trains are safe. 94 minutes. I think, is that quite enough? Well, I mean, you know, you're all great. You probably stick around. Let's have a little think about where the railway's going to go, but maybe not actually build it on this side, because I think it's a bit fiddlier, because we've got all sorts of land boundaries and all sorts to do. We'll maybe do this in another stream. This might be what we end up doing in the next stream, if I still haven't put the audio onto the other video. Can we go for 120 minutes? No. No, we're going to finish up sooner because I've run out of tea, and I'm going to butter some slices of cake, and I'm going to leave you all in peace and quiet because this is quite long enough. We'll have a marathon stream at some point when lockdown is lifted and I'm left to my own devices and haven't got anything better to do. But the chances are, if I'm left to my own devices and I haven't got anything better to do, I'm going to go out and about because, good grief, I wanted to travel on trains so much. I miss just travelling, the excitement of going somewhere. You know, oh dear. Anyway, where do we think where do we think the station's going to arrive? Clearly, there's protected land. There's going to be protected land around the abbey, so you're not going to be cutting into some of this sort of space here. This is probably all land owned by the railway. By the abbey. So where, you know, you've also got to look at the topography. God, it's windy out there. It's really weird, windy weather. You've got to look at the topography. So are we going to have it on the top of the hill? And actually, you know, so what's probably going to happen is we're going to cut. Are you going to do the weird things where lines annoyingly miss each other due to competition of the early railway builders? Yes, I am. So I think I'm going to do that. I'm going to have some duplicates going through this area here. So I'm going to have two railways. I'm going to have a railway that comes round and kind of weaves through this valley to come up and meet this town. And I think I'm going to have another one that cuts through that's a freight line but also carries passengers. I think I'm going to do both. Lockdown bank holiday is clearly the best option for Marathon Street. It is, except that I need to have a break from staring at a computer screen, so I'm not going to do that. I'm going to have a no computer day on Saturday and a no computer day on Monday. I'm going to have to do some work on Sunday. And also, Dean and I just want to not do work or other things. So sadly, no, I'm being selfish or not selfish and not doing stream things over the weekend, much as I'd love to. Much as I would love to. Yeah, I'm going to have loads of railways. I'm looking forward to some of the ones up here. So essentially, I think the station we're going to build up here is going to be a larger one to allow for different branch lines. And I think we're going to have the fun ones are going to be where we start putting branch lines up this little, like putting a railway up here. I think it's going to be fun to have little pathetic little weavy railways. So Peter Hendy and I have not met, actually. We've passed a couple of times in the corridors when I was working at Waterloo General Offices, but we haven't met. Tim recommended that I go up and say hello when I was in there next, but I haven't been down there working for a long time because the workload that Wessex has changed a bit. So we don't have so much... I used to work quite a lot on Wessex jobs coming out of Waterloo, but there are more structural jobs and far fewer track jobs. There have been a lot of earthworks jobs recently, mostly related to failures, but so I've not been working down there as much. So I haven't had a chance to say hello to Sir Peter Hendy. He'd have no idea who I am. You've got to do self-care. Absolutely right, Hyper Doggotron. You've got to do self-care. Too right. Self-care is other things. Simon's going to go. He's getting hungry. He needs to make dinner. Evening all nice weekend, Gareth. Well, same to you, Simon. I think I'm going to do the same thing. You know, we've talked about what the railway is going to appear. I might even do. You know, if I've got an off chance, if I do end up playing again, I'll put it live and you can come and say hello. Because my computer seems to be handling it all right actually, which is nice. So we're going to have some little valley railways coming in. We're going to have. And we're probably going to have a large station being built as the kind of the grand sort of start. What we'll probably do is convert this line from the current, it's currently using metro tracks, we'll probably convert it into heavy rail and then divert out to join into the new station. But leave this one open or maybe convert it into another kind of standard station. So you have a sort of a secondary station but then a larger terminal station perhaps a bit further out of town. But it needs to be somewhere, that is sufficiently close to the level of the railway up here because you don't want a tremendous climb to get down. Or do you? Maybe you do. Maybe we do want the railway to be nice and low. Anyway, that is something to... About to pass 100 minutes. Yeah, we're going to probably pass 100 minutes. That is something for us to think about. Time for lunch. Yeah, Brian. It's nice to have some international viewers. Everyone's going anyway. I'm going to go too. This has been fun. Thanks. I'm going to just... Wait a minute, what I'm going to do? I'm going to put it on... cinematic mode so we can see some stuff going on. Thanks everyone. This was fun. I don't know what. It's been nice of you to join, and I'm glad you all have because it's been nice. This road, it's already looking busy, isn't it? Crikey. Anyway, cheerio!